Hey, folks. So I've already read this fucking book once already, all the way through, not realizing I wasn't recording because, of course, I'm still new to recording shit on a regular basis. And I've already used two foul words before, of course, pointing out that this is reading children's books to adults, and we don't recommend that. I don't know who we are exactly. It's me, one guy, sitting here at his computer and his camera. And if there had been a we, maybe someone could have said to me, "Hey, your fucking camera wasn't running last time." But anyway, um, children's books read to adults to get us through this whole coronavirus thing as we self isolate and shit. Anyway, yes, I've now read this book and done an introduction to this book once the whole time, thinking I was recording, and I wasn't. But because I've got nothing better to do with my time, and many of you don't have anything better to do with your time, no longer being able to go to bars and drink yourself silly, as is the want in the area where I'm at, you can sit down and listen to me read the fucking book. So this book, Trolls and Their Relatives, it's a drier book. We picked this up in half-price books when the older boy was like a year old, maybe. And I remember just laughing myself silly and thinking it was great. But also thinking, well, we'll save it for when he's, 5 or something. But I think we started probably reading it to him when he was 3 or so, thereabouts. It's a book in translation, Norwegian book, called Trolls and Their Relatives by Jan Bergh Eriksen. Drawings by Per Aase. 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 I don't know how you say that. Anyway, by that guy and by that guy. Or woman. I don't know. And it is a book in translation. So as I say, there's because of that, there may be some weird language and stuff. And when I would read it to the boy originally, I would try and sort of fix things so that the grammar wasn't all weird, the English wasn't all weird. But as he became old enough to be able to read stuff himself, I stopped mucking about with that, and I just read it how it is. And if he ever asks me why it's weird, I just tell him, well, it was originally written in Norwegian, and we can't account for the translation. But anyway, so yeah, PG-13 here, folks. Guaranteed to be some more language and things as we go along. I guarantee you. Also, nudity as we read this one too. So there's that. Not that necessarily needs to be something we should be upset about sharing with our children, right? Because hey, we'll tell them stories about kids being marched off to live under a mountain or something because some dude couldn't pay the debt to the rat catcher, but God forbid that they tell them about two men in love with each other or some fucking thing. Anyway, Trolls and Their Relatives by Jan Bergh Eriksen, drawings by Per Aase. Book in translation. In the beginning was darkness. And in darkness, trolls are born. That little guy. For millions of years, Norway was covered in darkness, snow and ice. When, finally, the darkness lifted and most of the snow and ice had melted away, the trolls were there. You spot the nudity? Lots of nudity in this picture. Love this picture. After the boy and I had read the book a few times, we'd go through here and we'd try and pick out all the different types of trolls that we learn about in the book who are all in this drawing. But I get a kick out of this. It's lots of different creatures and critters and things, and the artwork overall I think is pretty cool. I like this. This Per Aase is doing a good job because I love that little reindeer. He looks so confused, and I only just tonight figured out why, as I'm watching myself flip this back and forth, why that might be, and it's because it's like, what the and he sees all these trolls right over there. So for millions of years, Norway was covered in darkness, snow, and ice. When, finally, the darkness lifted and most of the snow and ice had melted away, the trolls were there. They were still there when the first Norwegian came strolling along with his belongings. He found them in different colors, shapes, and sizes. Big ones. Tall ones. Love this dude. He looks like John Lennon. Right? Maybe John Oliver. Standard sized and mini ones, all with only 8 fingers and 8 toes. Tails, and only 8 fingers and 8 toes. At first, the Norwegians were not too particular about housing. They lived in caves. But as the trolls too preferred to live inside the mountains, they had to fight the Norwegians for it. Now and then, the Norwegians won. But just as often, they lost. Fairly soon, the Norwegians discovered that all trolls always rule at night with a free go at any human soul who dares to wander around in the darkness. But mostly, humans rule the day, and every troll caught by the sunshine is turned into stone and bursts. The remains of unfortunate trolls can be seen all over the place in Norway. As time went on, the Norwegians turned into Vikings, brave people, their greatest fun, drinking mead and chopping heads off. Another great drawing. It's like a guy in the back there running away with a keg. Someone else got like 2 chickens. Dude with a cow. Another dude with a big chest of jewels. And this guy here with his spoils. The Vikings were great seafaring people, roaming all over the oceans. And there are 2 places in the book where there's sort of a longer portion. I'm going to not read those as we go on here and come back to those at the end. The Vikings dreaded only one thing, Draugen, a sea cousin of the land troll. Check that dude out. I think they've got like a, there's like a, what do you call it? Oil mining platform that, like offshore oil mining platform designed in Norway called the Draugen. And maybe his brother Noken, who lives in the slimy, dark, bottomless pools. Or his other brother, Fossegrammen, who lives in the waterfalls. He is the musical one of the bunch and the one who teaches the fiddle players of Norwegian folklore how to play their tunes. But to do so, they have to offer him a goat. The fatter the better. You ever wondered where the squeaky noise of the Norwegian folklore fiddle comes from? Now you know. It's from the goat. As time went on, some very brave monks from England came over from England to bring Christianity to the Vikings. But knowing their reputation, they didn't believe they could convert them only with godliness, so they brought with them a rather sinister character and planned to use him to scare Christianity into the Vikings. But the Norwegians took this sinister old character to their bosom, named him Old Eric, dressed him up as an official tax collector, and in this way he wanders around collecting souls. He is easily recognizable, having horns and a beard like a goat. Let me get this guy in focus. Horns and a beard like a goat. 1 normal foot and 1 cloven hoof. He is believed to be closely related to the trolls. Maybe the master of them all. There he is there. The Norwegians try to cheat and fool Old Eric as often as they can. But usually, Old Eric gets what he is after. As time went on, the standard of living improved even for the trolls. Many of them moved out of the hills and into castles, far away over the mountains, east of the sun and west of the moon, which is a popular phrase in Norwegian folklore, east of the sun and west of the moon. Kind of like how we use Timbuktu or half a mile from nowhere, or buttfuck Montana or something. But the trolls felt kind of lonely living alone, so they took up the habit of kidnapping princesses. They hold them as hostages until the Ash Lad, or some prince, comes along. He cuts off the trolls 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, or even 12 heads, rescues the princess, and in due time gets her and half the kingdom as reward. And originally when I would read this to the boy, I'd get him to do things like count the noses or count the eyes and tell me how many heads on this troll and that kind of thing. Man, check out this guy. That dude is thick, man. Yeah, I remember walking around with a boy one time when we saw 3 mailboxes. They're like 3 boxes on 1 post. And I remember Finn looking at them and saying something about the ash lad. And I said, oh yeah, I guess the ash lad has to deliver the mail there because they've got a 3-headed mailbox. As time went even further on, the small trolls living in the hills and under the ground became envious of the Norwegians and formed their own world, a copy of the human one, complete with cattle, farms, churches, etc., etc., etc. They are called the underground people. They are small, not very beautiful themselves, but they have beautiful daughters called Hulder. She is well equipped up front to lure any innocent farm boy underground, where he is bewitched and must stay her husband forever. But just as a medal, I think they mean coin, has 2 sides, so does the Hulder. She has a tail like a cow. That's some stellar 70s artwork right there. Once in a while, the Hulder falls so much in love with a boy that she is willing to marry him in a Christian church. She then loses her tail and becomes the best wife a man can have. Which is kind of confusing for me with this picture because she still has her tail. And that dog does not look like he thinks she's the best wife a man could have. Of course, the dog looks like a Pomeranian, and Pomeranians are assholes, so what does he know? When the Hulder grows older, some 400, 500 years, she changes and becomes a troll-curing. She is then even able to take her head off, carry it under her arm. Why has she developed this peculiar behavior? Nobody knows. Maybe just another female whim. Some of the underground people moved up in the world and into the Norwegians' farms and homes, where they installed themselves as house gods. They constantly harass the Norwegians and other humans around, but they take good care of the Norwegians' cattle. If you meet a very small and strange person in a Norwegian home, watch out and act with caution. Maybe you just met a Nisa. And this is another great drawing. I love this. A great piece of artwork here. That Nisa looks so happy. Giving seeds to the birds in the winter time, and the little birds are all like, yes, give us the seeds, give us this thing. He's like, so. And a little fox is running by in the cold. I'd say night, but you know, these guys are way up north, so this could be midday in the wintertime. But yeah, love that. That fox in focus. Come on, focus on the fox. Or not. Anyway. Cool picture. To keep the Nisa relatively happy, the Norwegians have to feed him properly. Every Christmas Eve, they set out a big bowl of porridge in the barn for the Nisa. This scene is often reproduced on Norwegian Christmas cards, and the Nisa is then called Jule-Nisa. But remember, he is a heathen house god. Yeah, there's some weird-ass Christian overtones and shit to the Norwegian mythology around trolls as it's developed, and that's one of those things. But anyway, if you are attacked by a troll, there are various methods for saving yourself. Number 1, if you are smart, you can outwit him, because he is not too brilliant. 2, but if method 1 fails, you can use your faith and the cross against him. 3, if methods 1 and 2 fail, and you have an old muzzleloader and a silver button for a bullet. But if methods 1, 2, and 3 fail, you can throw steel over his head or heads and he will disappear. But be careful before you start throwing any knives around. He could be one of your family. 5. And if methods 1, 2, 3, and 4 fail, your only chance is to run until the sun rises, and the troll will either stop chasing you or burst. Ignorant foreigners often ask, do the trolls still exist? Just take a trip into the nearest woods some dark and stormy night. So, beware. They are watching you. And maybe if you lose control, you might become a troll yourself. And then there's So that is Trolls and Their Relatives. And that's usually how I'd read it to the boy. I'd usually leave out the two longer bits of this. I hope you guys enjoyed the main reading there. You're welcome to stick around here as I go back and again look at a couple of things. I like again, there's our owl friend beginning and right. Our cool ass reindeer. All the trolls. The big ones. John Lennon troll. And we get to that one here about, where are the Vikings? Here we go. So this thing here about the Vikings being great seafaring people roaming all over the oceans. Isn't that cool? Drawing there of the polar bear. Watching them go by. All the animals look so worried. I don't know what the deal is here. But anyway, so here's the little, I say little, but I mean it's the problem with these longer bits is that they really do take away from the rhythm of the story. So short break for a family tale. Remember the name of the author here is Eriksen, right? So short break for a family tale. A seafaring Viking, Eric the Red, was born some time ago a few miles outside a Norwegian town called Stavanger. We're not sure why he was called the Red, if it was because of his red hair or his red complexion due to bad temper and drinking too much mead, or, other people's blood spilt on him, or a combination of all. He and his father had a nasty habit of cutting other people down. His father cut down someone in Norway, thus had to flee that country. Eric went with him. He went to Iceland, where Eric in due time cut down some more people. He then had to flee again, but did not know where to go, so he had to discover Greenland, did so, and settled there. His son, Leif Erik's son, found Greenland a little too chilly in the winter, so he gathered his men and sailed south. Down south he discovered Wineland the Good, later called America, and settled there for some time. But as stories go, he and his men invited the native girls back for a ride in their boat, the native boys went mad and nasty, and that was the end of that discovery. End of family tale. And then the other one concerns our friend Old Eric, right? You see, this reads nicely as it is because you get the Norwegians try to cheat and fool Old Eric as often as they can. But usually Old Eric gets what he is after. And so, that this great long fucking thing in the middle of this here, it kind of throws it out. But this is a good story. This is one that I'm familiar with from other folk tales and things. So, the typical story, it says, a Norwegian boy was sitting by the roadside cracking nuts. Just as he found a worm-eaten one, Old Eric came wandering along. Is it true what people say about you? The boy asked Old Eric, that you can make yourself so small that you can creep into this nut here through this tiny wormhole? Old Eric proudly said yes, and did so. Quickly, spelled incorrectly. The boy put a twig in the hole. He then went back to the blacksmith and asked him to crack the nut for him. The blacksmith put the nut on the anvil, took his smallest hammer, and knocked the nut very gently. No result. Then he took a slightly bigger hammer, knocked still gently. No result. Then he took a middle-sized hammer, knocked not so gently. No result. Then he took a big hammer, knocked hard. No result. Then the blacksmith got real mad, grabbed his biggest hammer, and banged down on the nut with all of his might. Results! The nut cracked with a tremendous bang. Old Eric and half the smithy roof went sky high. Said the stunned blacksmith, the devil himself was in that nut. He sure was. And typical story. So you can see how that might not fit otherwise with the rhythm of the book when you're reading this to a kid who's like 3, 4, or 5 years old. So all in all, a fun book, and like I say, I got a kick out of it when I saw it in there in the used books, and it was in the children's section of the half-price books, even with our friend there, the Halder, and some of the weird sexist shit, like the Norwegians arriving with their belongings, right? Where did it go? There we are. Norwegians arriving with their belongings. So, but anyway, so there it is. That's tonight's children's book, read for adults, Trolls and Their Relatives, Jan Bergh Eriksen, drawings by Per Aase. Dreyer book. Tomorrow night, I think I'll read something else with nudity, and we shall see what transpires then. In the meantime, if you want to criticize my pronunciation of various Norwegian words that are presented in the book, feel free to comment that below or send me hate mail, what have you. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this. Don't get the coronavirus. Don't get sick. Stay well. Be well. Don't get other people sick. Don't give them the coronavirus. Yeah, good times. Have a good night.